Just another question. Who has been to Ansible Fest? Oh, guys, what's this? Okay. I would like to do some part of this a little bit more interactive than just a simple talk. So I have to explain what problem I want to solve, and then I want to ask you how you are solving it, and then I go through the list of things I came up with how to do this. The basic question, everyone does this. We have servers of a certain kind. Generally, we do that probably with Ansible groups, web kind of server thingy, and a processing or a database or something kind of thingy. It doesn't really matter what I'm using here as an example. It's just I need an example and a web layer and a processing layer, and these are two nodes, two servers, two VMs. It doesn't matter. And generally, what every one of you knows as well, we might have different environments, sometimes called stages. That's why my talk is called multi-staging for Ansible. So this is simple enough to do, I think, but it gets more complicated if you have more dimensions. Say you have locations, a location Berlin and then location Amsterdam, things like that. So the real question is, how do you model that with Ansible? How are you doing it? Where do you put your variables?
Hiera?
Hiera. Do you have Hiera in Ansible?
No, Puppets.
Yeah, no, sorry, wrong talk here. Go. And in German there was a television show, Hohecker, You Are Out. Perhaps someone remembers that in my childhood somewhere. No, how do you do it? Where do you place your variables for kinds of servers and environments? Where do you put environment variables?
Host file.
In the host file. So it's every host gets the variable, even if they are all in the same kind of server. Group var. Okay, we will come to that, group vars. That was my idea as well, but there is one problem.
This configuration management database.
That's a great idea if you have one. Do you already had one, and could you reuse it, or did you have to add it?
We did have one.
Okay, that's great, thank you. We don't have the luxury. Anyone else? I will have solutions, but I really want to see if there's something you do that I didn't come up with. Okay. So I have 6 variants how to do this. The first one just came up, group variables. I will get to that in a little bit detail. When you ask when you did ask Michael Dahan, probably he won't answer anymore any Ansible questions. But if you ask the Ansible guys, sometimes or mostly they tell you use multiple inventories and never put the same variable key in multiple places. Keep it simple, 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 which is a good advice. Then Ansible has a variable precedence. You could just use that. Then Ansible has the notion of groups and children of groups. You could use that. You could do what I did. You could create your own vars plugin. Or you could go to Ansible Fest, talk with one of the core guys, and probably find a better solution. We will see that. Okay, group variables. How do we do that? Again, very simple. We have the web group, and all my servers have fruit names or Gemüse.
Vegetable.
Vegetable. Okay, it's for historical reasons. So we have web servers and we have processing servers, and some of the servers are in the development environment and some of the servers are in the production environment. This is what seems logical. So I might want to add some vars. I place them in the inventory file. You could do that in the group vars files. That doesn't matter. It's just to have it here in one place and to keep it simple. I hope everyone has enough experience with Ansible that he can follow things like inventory and group vars? I really hope so. Sorry, because I didn't prepare a talk that gives you the slow ramp up to Ansible. So what I want to declare is we have a heap. This is my only variable in this example. I want to define the heap because this is a Java application, and there I can define how large my heap for this application will be, and I can do that for the web part and the processing part. So the value of this variable might change with regard to kinds of servers and environments. And now I start up. In the web layer, the default value should be 2 GB heap. Processing the same, and in development still the same. It's a little bit difficult. How would I want to do that for web and proc? How can I just define that I want to have in development a different heap for web and a different heap for proc? I have just one name. I have to split these names into two. So let's do that. So I have a web heap and I have a proc heap and so on. And now I can define in development the web heap, and the proc heap should be this, and in production it should be that. Nice enough. Should work. So let's look. What would you say I will get in development for proc heap? And in production?
4 and 8.
Sorry. Groups are, at least under Linux, sorted alphabetically. Brian DeCoca told me, I thought it was everywhere the same, but it depends on the operating system. I didn't know that because I only worked with Linux, and in Linux it's always groups are sorted alphabetically. So that doesn't fucking help. Sorry, my English. What I could do is something like prefix everything with 10 underscore, 20 underscore, 30 underscore, like in old times. The first time I ever did some programming was a Commodore PET, and I used BASIC. A friend of mine had that, and it was hilarious. I don't like it. It's not that it's not possible to do it this way, but for simple aesthetical reasons, I don't like it. I don't want to name my things with a prefix just to get the right order of the groups. But if you want to keep it simple and you need a solution for that, you can do it. It works. So if you need it, remember, you could do that. So let's look a little bit deeper. If I use group variables in the file system, which I could do, groups are still sorted alphabetically. That doesn't help as well. And again, I said that before, when you ask the Ansible guys, I did that multiple times in different contexts, they always tell you, don't define proc heap in multiple places, just define it in one single place. And sorry, that doesn't do it. That doesn't cut it. There are times when I need multiple layers of definitions and I want to have a priority in these layers. Very simple. If you know Puppets Hiera, I will come to that later on. Hiera does that exactly. So group vars, besides the hack with the 10 underscore, 20 underscore, don't work. The next thing you could do, and this is something you get proposed as well from the Ansible guys, is use multiple inventories. So you have one inventory for environment, for development, for test, and this works quite fine. And again, if you don't need anything else, if this is sufficient for you, then use this. Don't make it more complicated than is necessary. Just define your variables in the inventory and have multiple inventory for each of your environments. But if you have more layers that you need, this doesn't work. And it a little bit conflicts that they say as well, you shouldn't put too much stuff in the inventory. Because it might be, in many companies, it's just like that the inventory comes from another department. so it's just not under your control. So you cannot use it this way, or you have to split it up and do your handling manually. A great idea would be to have your own configuration management database. So again, a possible solution, but I still don't like it. Have you ever tried to understand the variable precedence of chef? Oh, you're lucky. I just wrote an article comparing Ansible Chef and Puppet, and I'm not sure I really understood it. I did some magic hand waving in the article that it's complicated and don't touch it. In Ansible it's better, but for quite some time it wasn't good. Because what they told you in the documentation was you have this hierarchy. Role defaults are on the lowest level, and the extra vars you put on the command line are the highest priority. But the most interesting, sorry, wrong direction. This is the extra vars. You have connection variables, you have inventory variables, we had that, you have facts, and you have the role defaults. But the most interesting is most everything else. And in most everything else, there was no definition with regard to these possible locations of variables. In Ansible 2.0 and even in Ansible 1.9.4, it has been defined. Before that, it changed between 1.8 something and 1.9 something. And if you asked one of the core developers, they didn't sometimes even know which is the correct order, because it was totally implementation dependent and nobody understood it anymore. That's one of the reasons why they did such a big rewrite with Ansible 2.0. This is the order in 1.9.4. And as I said, it will be defined. The talk is a little bit older. It is defined in 2.0, but still not documented. If you look into the code, it's quite clear, and they promised that they will document it. It works. So you could use this order. What you could do, and what I did once, cancel. Okay, inventory variables, low priority, I don't want to do that. What you could use is include vars. You could have in your playbook a task, include vars. And you could just say include vars for environment, include vars for kind of server, include vars for location. And the order in which you define these tasks is the order in which these variables will be evaluated, and the last one wins, or the first one wins. I don't remember, it doesn't matter. You could do that. This really is good if you need quite some layers, but it's boilerplate. Every one of your playbooks has to have this definition of include vars. You could mix it up with vars files and things like that, but still it's the same problem. You have boilerplate code in each and every playbook, and if you want to change your layers, you have to do it across the board. So I used that in one project. It works well. It wasn't too big, so it was good enough. So this is what we came up with. We had environment variables, and you could use the lookup for the environment variables, and then you could have funny things like everything. So this might be development and web, and this might be the test vars, and this could be the production vars, things like that. You have many possibilities. If you really use the definition like this, you could and or things together. It's quite powerful. If you don't know it, it's a little bit difficult to read, but you get used to it. It works very well. So again, this is what we used in the project. Excuse me. when I recently looked into the current code of Ansible 2.0, after I talked with Brian Coker on Ansible Fest, and understood how children are handled internally, I came up with another idea, and I tried that out just this Saturday. Generally, the idea of children is you have, say, a location Amsterdam as a parent, and in Amsterdam you have a development environment and a production environment perhaps. And everything that is a child of another group gets higher priority, and you could use that. And I did that, and it works quite well. So what I did is, on the top I have the kind of servers, that is web and DB, and to keep the order I want. This is not a kind of server, but it's a kind of hack. I place location at the same level as the kind of things as servers I have. Then I have the location Berlin and London, or Berlin and Amsterdam, and again I place the category I want to have, the layer, on the same hierarchy level as Berlin and London. It looks strange for me. It just doesn't please me. But this is the best solution you can come up with Ansible as it is. If you need multiple layers and just don't want to hack around, have boilerplate code, use 10 underscore, 20 underscore as names for your groups, this really works best if you can get over that it is strange to have web database and location on the same layer, because they don't belong together. But this works. Okay, the final solution. No, not the final, sorry. I'm wrong. The Create Your Own VAS plugin. I did that. I created something like this for a customer. It's totally modeled after Puppet Hiera. Hiera, I hate Puppet. You can listen to me if you have been at the last DevOps meetup. I ranted for an hour about Puppet, and it was great for me. But one thing Puppet really did great is Hiera. Because in Hiera, it totally fits at least my model, how I want to model my world, my configuration management database. It's so simple and it works. I just define a hierarchy. On the lowest level I have common. So Hiera looks for a file in a certain directory named common.yaml. And then it looks in the roles directory, and if a role is defined, it looks in roles is the name in Puppet. This would be my kind. It looks into roles proc, roles web, roles database. And then it looks in environment and location, whatever I want as my hierarchy. This is really what I would like to have in Ansible. So I created a variable plugin for Ansible. Currently it's done for a customer, so I cannot open source it as it is. I planned that, but we will see if I will publish it. So really it's just a mapping to the file system, and that's all. This is really clear, simple, and easy to understand, and I can explain it to everyone in 5 minutes. If I publish it, you will see it there. The code is already done, but not polished. And what I really like would be to have something like Hiera inside Ansible for everyone. I don't want you to have to install a plugin from someone else you don't know. Okay, you know me now, but nobody else does. So I would really like to have Hiera or something like that in Ansible, because I think perhaps it's not that everyone needs this, but I think 20%, 30% of Ansible users probably would like to use this. I think so. Please contradict me later. So I tried to explain that to Ansible guys. I created a posting in the Ansible project mailing list, explained that to me, and they said, oh no, we don't want that. I created an issue some months later because I thought I had a better way to explain that. No, we don't want that. And at Ansible Fest they have something that was really, really great. You could book 15 minutes with one of the Ansible core developers. And I had to answer each and every question that you came up with. It was really well used. It's a great idea. So I booked Brian Coca just because I would have liked to talk to James Camerata, but that was colliding with a talk I wanted to see, so I just chose Brian Coca. I didn't know him before, and explained to him again what I wanted to do. And again he said, oh no, Hiera is such a mess. And I didn't understand why he thought Hiera is a mess. The thing is, he had learned Hiera, to use Hiera in a completely different way. He thought you have to ask Hiera for, give me the variable value in that group, in that kind, in that something. So you have perhaps 10 values and you have to decide which one is the right one. But you can use Puppet Hiera just to ask, give me the value for variable x, and if the hierarchy is defined well, you get one value. And after he understood what I wanted, he said, oh, that's on my to-do list since some month. I wanted to do that for quite some time, but I didn't get to it. So I offered to implement it. I will see if that works. I really don't know. Perhaps they say, oh, it's still such a mess and they don't want it because it changes Ansible in the core. But I looked into it. The implementation is tiny and simple. It's really perhaps, in the end, it will be 20 lines of code. Because there are exactly 2 places where you have to change things, and this should work. If they don't accept the patch, I will publish the Vars plugin, but I really would prefer Ansible to do the right thing. Okay, normally you have that in front. I don't like it if someone talks in front of everything about himself. My name is Victor Volle. I work here at Codecentric, and I think that's enough about me. Thank you very much. That's all. Okay, so again, what would you use now that you have seen all my possible solutions?
There's one solution you didn't mention.
Great, thank you.
Inventory plugins? Or
yes, you're right, I forgot that because I don't like to put...
Repeat it.
Ah, sorry, yes. He asked if I couldn't use a dynamic inventory plugin. This is a great idea, I forgot that, you're right, I had that on my list. The thing is just, I don't want to mix the inventory because it quite often comes from another place where I don't have control. I want to have the variables inside of my project. You could use it, it works as well, but again, I like to have all the variables in the file system directly and not in this magically inventory scripting thing. It works, you're right, I should add that. Do you use that?
Yeah, actually because I use it as kind of an abstraction layer to plug into different databases at the back end where I get data from, host lists, variables, whatever. And the abstraction goes through the dynamic inventory plugin.
Okay.
So you just have a dynamic inventory and this magically pulls all the data together from somewhere.
That's great. I still want to have it inside of Ansible, but it's a great solution.
Another question. The other question, you didn't mention using the facts of the machine itself. So normally you could configure your machines so that you say, okay, I take 50% of the memory of the machine for the heap or something like that. So that's for most of the setups is, I think, the better solution.
This works well if it's variables like the heap I had here. Just because of this example, I think it's a little bit too simple. What I had in mind as well is a printer. We had it once. I was working for a small, not so small bank, and you know, in the early 2000s, they printed ton lists, transaction numbers on a special kind of paper, and it gets wrapped in an envelope so that nobody could see the ton list. And the configuration for this printer was something that had to be different for each environment. And once it happens that the developer configuration landed into production, so every ton list came out at the printer of the developer. So still, there are variables and values where I could use the facts about the machine, about the system. This is great. And for the heap, this would work very well. Perhaps I should choose a little bit more complicated example. But for many, many other variables, database connections, passwords, things like that, I couldn't use the facts. So I want to have a solution that solves all problems if possible.
Yeah, just thinking out loud, how about using a key value store? Something like etcd or something like that?
Yes, that would be for me something like a configuration management database.
Yeah.
It's just
going back to the same point.
Going back to the same point, and again, I would like to. I love Ansible for its simplicity. I can start with Ansible in 5 minutes, in an hour, I have something running. I don't have to install anything else. I can start with my file system and Ansible, and I love about Ansible. And so I would like to have a solution that helps me there as well. If I have to scale somewhere else and I have to plug data from multiple stores or etcd or a console or something like that, it's great. If I already have that or I already need it anyway. But to get the fast learning curve, the fast ramp up Ansible normally offers, I would like to have that as simple as possible. So again, how large is your Ansible installation? How many servers do you configure with Ansible? The biggest I ever did was, I think, 60 servers, not that large.
It's multiple environments with roughly 20, 30, 50 machines in each of them.
Anyone more than 100?
Around about 170, but not directly on the operating system basis. It's more on the application base we used in this environment. Okay.
And how do you solve the problem?
We do a bit. We start with this children system, but the most things still group bars. Okay.
But you don't have the problem of different layers? Is it simple enough? You could place the variables so that it's not difficult?
The systems are so similar.
Okay.
And this environment is so similar that it's not needed to have really one different thing there. Especially we have only one endpoint.
Okay.
And then I have this. The endpoint is the same for all servers in Italy, and another endpoint is in Nuremberg, and the Italian servers don't send directly to Nuremberg.
Okay, again what I said, if your setup is simple enough, don't overcomplicate it. Don't use something you don't need. That's for sure. Okay. Anything else to add, to ask?
You mentioned both your plugin and also your proposal for a patch, but you didn't mention how you would define the hierarchy. So you would have an additional file that would be segregated in this order.
Okay, the question was if I do as a vars plugin or as a patch, how would the hierarchy would be defined? The current idea is if I do it as a vars plugin, I have an extra file that would reside alongside group vars. This isn't perfect, but because you can have multiple places where group vars are, I didn't know that beforehand, but Ansible looks alongside the inventory and alongside the current playbook if it finds a directory group vars. I didn't know that. So I have to find a solution for that for a vars plugin. With regard to a patch, I talked with Brian DeCoca and someone else joined in GitHub. There the idea is to just add it into the inventory. To have something like :children, you have something like :members and :parent or something like that. Just the same syntax, but a little bit different semantic and different keywords. Okay? Then, thank you again.